You're watching The World with me, Charles Adiegolu. Now, President Trump has praised Hamas for locating the remains of the last Israeli hostage held in the Gaza Strip. Ron Gavili's body was restored to his family on Monday. Mr. Trump has said that Hamas had worked very hard, including with Israel, to locate him. Many people gathered at Tel Aviv's Hostages Square following the return of Mr. Gavili's remains. The retrieval of his body opens the way for further progress in Gaza's ceasefire deal. Phase 2 is meant to involve the reconstruction and full demilitarization of Gaza, including the disarming of Hamas and other Palestinian groups. The plan is also meant to see the deployment of an international stabilization force and the progressive withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. Well, for all this, I'm joined now on the line from London by the author and international affairs analyst, Dr. Marek Laskiewicz. Good to see you, Dr. Laskiewicz. So the body of the last Israeli hostage has been retrieved from Gaza, marking the end of Israel's hostage agony. And technically, that should trigger the next phase of the US-led peace plan, which entails the opening of the Gaza-Egypt crossing, the disarming of Hamas, Israel withdrawing, the deployment of an international protection force, and the Palestinian technical group taking over Gaza. Do you question how quickly, if at all, this next phase will happen?
Well, let's concentrate on the positive. First of all, the last hostage has been identified. In a very real sense, this could mark the end of the October 7th day counting by Israel. And it would show, therefore, that the phase 1 has been completed. And now let us hope phase 2 goes ahead. That is the positive aspect. The problem is, what is the role of Hamas? Now, Hamas has suggested it becomes the police force, or a part of the police force. It wanted to play a role in government, whereas Israel is presumably going to oppose all of that. Moreover, there's the question of Hamas actually handing over all their weapons. This is not impossible. The IRA did so. But whether Hamas will do so is entirely questionable. And so, therefore, this phase 2 has some serious issues still to be resolved. However, it is a good start, and let us hope it can go ahead.
The knob of the problem here, because Mr. Netanyahu has said the next phase of the peace deal is not the reconstruction of Gaza, but the disarming of Hamas. That is absolutely uppermost in his sort of pecking order of things to be done. So a lot more suffering still ahead for the people of Gaza before they can hope for a return to normality.
Yes, that is the point, of course. Whether and how Israel is prepared to accept anything about Hamas. Therefore, for example, as he has stated, what Israel wants to see is a total disarming of Hamas. And then, of course, the rebuilding of Gaza, although please note, there are some in Israel did not want Gaza rebuilt. They wanted the Gazan population to leave. However, President Donald Trump has played a very key role in dampening down that particular approach. And therefore, it hinges also on President Donald Trump, and not just on Premier Netanyahu, whether or what and how quickly phase 2 goes ahead. Certainly, the disarming of Hamas is a key point. There are other aspects as well, namely that Hamas has, of course, restored control over the Gaza territory, and because they had those public executions, which, of course, shocked the world, of their opponents. And therefore, the situation is, in that sense, fraught. It will not be immediate, the phase 2, because of these issues. However, it is technically the end of phase 1, which is something.
And of course, beyond the question that you raised there, which, as I said, is very critical, which is the unpicking of Hamas from the fabric of Gaza. There's also the question of who will make up the international stabilization force that will deliver security for the future of Gaza.
Yeah, that is a very key point. The aspect, actually, there's another one linked to that, which is more important. Will Hamas accept so being ruled? Previously, when Hamas actually was stating its views about the phase two, it actually stated that it did not agree with any sort of force occupying Gaza. Presumably, judging by the silence on this issue, they've come round to accepting this. So there is the makeup of the force and whether it will be formally welcomed by Gaza. We have another problem here, which is very crucial to the whole business. We keep saying Hamas. Technically, we should be saying the people of Gaza. After all, it is actually they who should be deciding. But I don't know if you've noticed, but in the world, everyone doesn't actually say that, merely says what Hamas says and what Hamas doesn't say, as if Hamas were the representative for all the Gazan people. This is a very key point, and unfortunately, in this sense, Hamas has won, which does not bode well for phase two, because the implication is that Hamas actually is as much in control as any occupying soldiers to bring security or this board of peace or whatever. And that is going to be one of the crucial issues.
And just looking broadly at the overall sort of events that have been happening in Gaza over the last few years, Prime Minister Netanyahu said he had promised Israelis he would bring every hostage home, and that now is a promise finally delivered. But his critics say it's taken too long and cost too many Israeli and Palestinian lives. I mean, how do you react to that?
Well, this is politics. And to be quite honest, no operations in politics need last just a few days. It's not clear what his critics have in mind when they say it cost too many lives and took too long. The fact of the matter is that it was always going to be a difficult operation. What could be said, and I think this is a very key issue, is did the whole of Gaza have to be destroyed and so many lives lost? Sure, but then that was a point being made all the time. The fact of the matter is it has happened, and now we must actually think in some ways of building on the end of phase one to get a viable phase two. So these criticisms are, if you like, not of primary importance, and therefore I would not actually think they're going to do anything to disrupt phase two.
So given all the lingering questions that you've raised, Dr. Laskiewicz, including, how Hamas will be disarmed, when Israel's army will withdraw, who will make up the international force that will deliver security to Gaza, when reconstruction is going to begin, are you hopeful about what is going to happen in the future?
I think there is a measure of hope here because the sheer amount of money that the other Muslim countries, the Arab countries, and so on, are prepared to put into Gaza means rebuilding is financially possible. That's a very important point. Number two, there is agreement by the most powerful nation here, America, that there will be a rebuilt Gaza, and that is very important. There are, of course, constantly minor problems. We've talked about the disarming of Hamas. There's the prospect of whether and when the Israeli army would withdraw, which is what you've indicated, because unfortunately, sometimes it would appear that they have no such intention of withdrawing quickly, which is going to be a handicap. But there are good points to this. There has been, all the hostages have been found. That is a good point. And I think we should build on this. But to say that Gaza will be rebuilt quickly, to say that it is inevitable it will be rebuilt, no, that doesn't follow. But there are grounds for hope, and that's the most important thing here. However, they ought to start resolving these issues of Hamas, undoubtedly, as Prime Minister Netanyahu has indicated, because it is in many ways, I think, the crucial aspect of this.
Dr. Laskiewicz, thank you as ever for your assessment. Dr. Marek Laskiewicz is the author and international affairs analyst. He was talking to me on the line there from London.